Shitcoin.com.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Shitcoin.com show. We have a special guest this week. We have Dan, aka CMS Holdings on Twitter, who you've probably seen floating around, the co-founder and principal at CMS Holdings. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here. Good to talk to some of you guys. I've obviously known some of you for years, but we've never actually talked in any real capacity.
We're definitely looking forward to hearing what your take is on this current market. I mean, it seems like, I don't know, there are so many different opinions about where we're at. In terms of how far into this bear market we are, how deep do you think we are, and do you think the end is in sight?
I mean, it's pretty deep. I'll say this, I think most of the carnage that's happened on the corporate side, has worked through the system, right? If you were a lender, for the most part, you're dead. But even if you were on the edge, if you haven't gotten your act together at this juncture, I don't know, it's kind of unlikely, right? So I think the real corporate sort of issues that we're gonna work through the system have gone through. The funds that were gonna imploded. The lending desk that had to folded. The exchanges that were probably running insolvent are shown now. So I think that stuff's pretty much worked through the system. So in terms of actual sort of corporate risk that you'll see dribble through the market, I tend to be a believer that that's gone through. I think the bigger issue now is just it's not so much that you have this wave of additional selling pressure. There is constant issuance every day, which is material. Is that there's just lack of interest from traditional and or retail. There's just not a lot of willing buyers in the market, right? It's pretty slow. It's really not a lot going on in any of the corners. The merge is about the only thing that's got people interested for real dollar money stuff. I know you've seen some action there, right? That's been trading well, and it should continue to trade if things go smooth, right? There's the real risk that this actually doesn't go smooth through the event, but if it does, I think that'll give people some hope back into the market. But I don't know, I don't want to pick bottoms. I think we're relatively in the area, right? We've been for a bit. It's been pretty flat if you think about it since when things really fell off the wheels in June. It was Father's Day weekend, everything really shit the bed. ETH was under 1,000. Bitcoin was I don't know, what did it tap? High 17s. Anyway, it was that was the real flush of the leverage out of the system. And we've just been treading water since then, which is good because there's not new waves of selling. There's not people that are forced sellers coming to the market, but demand is not enough to bring it over whatever constant issuance is and whatever steady state selling it. So it's just been treading, and I think that's probably going to continue unless traditional catches a bid, meaning unless equities get some sustained motion underneath them and people stop worrying, I think you're probably just going to continue to chat. So here's the biggest thing, and this is what I hate about periods like this, and why it's probably a good idea to just take most of the summer off and sort of not worry about it, is crypto doesn't really dictate its own future here. It does to some degree, right? There's idiosyncratic stuff, which the merge is a good example of, and there's random assets that are doing some stuff, but in total, the dollars flowing in and out of the system right now are entirely tied to what you're seeing happen in US tech equities and in Europe to another degree. But really, if you just look at NASDAQ, right, as a proxy, that's what drives everything right now, which sucks because that's not really a tradable thing as far as I'm concerned. On aggregate, so we're just sitting around watching a lot of that movement. Now, will it decouple? Yes, it is decoupled to the downside already, which is not great, but it'll obviously trade with a little bit more beta, especially to the downside because crypto is a great risk asset to chuck. So anyway, I think that's where we're at, where we're just really waiting. Look, equities aren't going to go down forever, and they're not going to stay flat forever. Human ingenuity and productivity go forward, and things will recover, and we'll be looking at this in 5 years and not really think about it, but for the next 6 months, I don't know, we're really just sitting around watching that world. I don't know. It's I hate these periods in the market in general. They're just not interesting to me.
And yeah, I can remember a few. I mean, the first one I went through was after the one we call the Great Winter. When was that?
2015.
Yeah. That was really a shit because I was running a business and exchange at the time, and it was just it's not that it followed macro or anything. or that there weren't new things being invented is that no one gave a shit.
Yeah, nobody
for
cared about anything.
years. No one cared. You can give away bitcoins. Everyone's like, get the fuck out of here with no one cares about Bitcoin anymore. And it lasted for years.
I remember looking at TradeBlock at the time, and it was like, I think like 1,500 Bitcoin had traded on Bitfinex, which was like the biggest exchange at the time for the day. And I was like, and this is so Bitcoin's, I don't know, like a couple $100. And I was like, wow. This is, so it's like trading under 500 grand in aggregate. So like, let's say the exchange did $1 million for the day or something like that. I'm like, this is just not a business. I was like, nobody's going to survive this. I was like, nobody's making nearly enough money to like call this a thing. Yeah, that was bad. Yeah. That was the whole, like, when all the crypto companies were so big on payments, but they had that like line. It's like, oh, like as a rail. So like nobody would hold Bitcoin. They would just like move it really quickly and sell it. Like, no, it was so toxic that people like wouldn't even like consider the idea of like having it on a balance sheet. Yeah, that was bad.
It was only Bitstamp. I think we were holding a lot of coins back then. And BitPay, because they're also bullish. Everyone else, I mean, you have to pay the bills.
So literally, crypto businesses did not have it on the books.
No, I know. No, it was
you didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah, it was like, well, because you had like maybe 6 months to a year runway, and you were like, you had no, and like in crypto, like Bitcoin, it was all Bitcoin then. There really wasn't a lot going on elsewhere. Like that, it was also just like decaying so quickly. You could just be like, there's no way you can hold on to it. That was when, the rumor was always BitPay was the whale on Bitstamp that had to puke everything that big weekend through 300. Yeah, I've never gotten confirmation, but people always said, if you guys weren't around then, so like somebody just decided it was like a weekend, it was like a Saturday, that they were just going to get rid of like all their Bitcoin. And it was a lot. It was like 30 or 40,000 Bitcoin like units that had to get sold. And they would just like walk it down on Bitstamp. They would just like bring it down $5 and then bring it down $5. And then eventually they got to, I can't remember the price now. It was probably 100. And they just stuck the whole thing on the offer. So it just like sat there for like 2 days until like people could get enough money in to buy it. It was chaos. Like it really felt like it was over. Somebody was just like they just like rage quit and took the whole market down with them. Yeah. They were just bodying people. And it was so back in the day, you couldn't really move money around on the weekends. Like if you had to get money to Bitstamp, like if you were coming from the US, you could get in touch with Bitstamp. Yeah, you could like get it forwarded to you and credited for a certain amount, but like in general, like you had to wait like 48 hours for like an international wire to clear. So like you couldn't even buy it if you wanted. So if you were like trying to get it, you had to wait. I remember Coinbase like stopped, like, so like, I don't know, the market's like, let's call it like $99 by 100 and it's like pinned. Like you could buy it in Coinbase because it was instant, right, with ACH, but then they like basically jacked the price up like to, I don't know, call it 5% over. And people started like losing their minds, and they're like, "Well, why can't I buy it at 100 on Bitstamp?" And it's like, "Well, like we don't have any money there either. Like it's not like we have some like special pipe here." The infrastructure was really broken back then.
And I brought that up because then the next one was would be after 2017, which was I found to be really depressing because the whole market back then was only scams. Literally nothing came out. Like it was fucking Telegram, ICO, it was all fake, all Dentacoin, all scams. So when everything had crashed down, we basically had nothing to show for it. Like we didn't invent anything. We invented a way to scam people.
Everything on the blockchain, right?
No, it's like nothing came out of it. Ethereum was used a tiny bit, not really. So at the end of it, it's like, okay, so now we've shown ourselves to only be good for scams. When will we ever get people's faith back? But that's why I think it's so much nicer on this one, because I'm not a huge DeFi head, but I think those things are really cool. Like, I think that's useful.
Yeah, well, like the on-chain, like, I mean, like, I you probably remember this too. Like in that hangover of 2017, like the largest dApp had like a couple hundred users, maybe. Like it was like kind of like hilarious. Like nothing had any like tangible, like, but there's like billions of dollars in TVL and like millions, like I don't know if millions, but like very high number of like users and distinct things. Like yeah, it's definitely better this time around. The one good thing about 2018 though is like people were continuing to raise money. Like there was like there was like a thought that like, all right, like yeah, this is bad, but like there's like a thing here, and like we'll continue to like invest in it. like 2015, like it was like very unclear if this was just like over. Like I don't know, like, if you like had to pinpoint a time ever where I like felt like it was over, it was like the 2015 like winter. Like that, like even when Gox blew up, you were like, all right, this will be okay, like on the back of it. But like for 2015, you were like, is this like a lie? Did I just like waste 2 years of my life? Like, is this like really not gonna like work out? No, like it really felt like nobody in the world cared. There was like 5 people trading Bitcoin, and they like all talked to each other, and they were all like, "Is this just over? Like, are we not gonna?" Yeah, no, that was dark.
What are the differences for you? Do you feel like there's plenty more deal flow this bear market than the last one, or similar?
Oh yeah, like the thing is, so the asset class has grown like horizontally, right? Like there was this idea, especially back then in 2015, that like everything would just be bolted on Bitcoin, and like Bitcoin would just like pull everything in, and like this was like going to be where everything sat. And like really what ended up happening is like you ended up just exploding into like more assets, right? Like ETH became really popular the back half of 2015 and 2016, and like that saved a lot of companies in itself, just like ETH getting like popular, especially the exchanges. So like that led then to like, I don't know, you got like, you could call it half a dozen or so like L1s with like material value now, and like things built on top of them. So there's just a lot more. There's a lot more things going on and a lot more like corners of the like ecosystem. So there's like a lot more fundraising going on for sure. Like you could just like lose yourself like in one chain, investing in like all the pieces of it and just being upset and like have no idea what's going on in any of the other areas. So yeah, like the opportunity set is like massively larger than it was even in the like back half of 2018 and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's probably the trend. I mean, it just seems to be like that's the way like the scaling has somewhat like happened. Like maybe that's wrong, right? Like maybe the L2s on ETH like end up just becoming what like those like L1 ecosystems are currently. I don't know, like I'm not entirely sure how that plays out, but like either way, like it's going to keep expanding. Like there's like the universe of like things you can do and like investable corporates that like sit on top of them is just going to grow, I think.
And we also have the advantage of what Colin Platt, friend of the show, would say, which is that more tokens is always better. And now there's, with all the L1s and L2s, we have so many tokens.
There's so many tokens.
So when retail finally shows up, when they sell their Facebook shares and whatever they have, we have so many, just open your jacket. We have so many things to offer you. Look at all these tokens.
Dude, it's so funny. Like especially when Coinbase does like a listing and you're like, I know 2 of these 7 names. You're like, what is like, like, am I like that disconnected from the market? Like, it's impossible to like fully. Here's like another like way of like thinking about it. Like back in 2015, like nothing would happen and you like wouldn't know the person and or like what it was about. Like there was not like a ton of surprises. Like you knew pretty much everything that was like worthy information to know going on in the market at any given time. And like now you have no idea what's going on in so many pieces of it that you're just like really trying to play catch up. In the bull market, in like 2021, it was impossible. Like stuff was moving so quickly and the information was moving so quickly. You're like, I like have no idea what is going on at any given point. But so anyway, like that's changed a ton, like in the landscape too.
And everything,
Yeah,
and
now
everything
it's,
was pumping too. So it make it so difficult to keep track on everything. Like
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, in that run, it's like you can wake up and somebody's like, "Hey, bro, are you not on Pancake Bunny Swap?" It's like, what? And then you go for lunch, you're like, no, fuck it. There's an aggregator now. You got to get on the aggregator of Pancake Bunny Swap. Then you go for dinner. It's like, no, bro, they rugged already.
Yeah, no. It would do like an entire cycle in like a 48-hour period. Yeah. Like,
So
from like birth to mania to euphoria to death in like such a small time frame. No, that's God, that was
with layers,
that was a wild time.
with layers built on top.
Oh, it's
So
crazy.
there's like 3 layers deep in 2 days.
But I always want to know like who are the engineers sitting there, like who are just like who are pushing that through. I guess it's probably younger guys who like got nuts. They're like, I'm gonna spend a Tuesday and like just run this thing. I don't know.
It must be the same as that guy that came out that was running like multiple projects, right? It's probably just like 10 guys who are like running.
Oh, there's definitely
the Solana, the only dev on Solana, right?
the Saber thing. Yeah. the
it could be like a developer cartel, you know? They're running all the shit.
The memes on that were so good, though. I
love that
gotta
guy.
give it to the internet. No,
That-
there's
you-
probably a lot of cases. Like there's probably just an astronomical amount of like recycling of people through a lot of those
Yeah.
like things. Yeah, which is
You
fine.
You mentioned a little bit earlier about the merge and like the possibility of it
Yeah.
not being successful. So yeah, how are you weighing that up? Do you think that, because we've had the test nets which seem to go well, did go well. Do you think there is still a risk that something does go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk. I just like I handicap it pretty low. Like people far smarter than I like handicap it pretty low. So like I'm really like I have to lean on like other people's technical sort of like wit on this stuff. Like I am not nearly in the weeds enough to have any like concept of like what the chance of this like going through smoothly is. Like it just seems that the people who are closest to it seem to like think it's going to go as smooth as possible. But there's always like a risk of like it not, right? Like that's just like the reality of software and like technology in general. So I don't know. I'm very, very high probability, like high 90s that this like goes smoothly and like everything's okay. But
basically same as like Kevin, Joe, and even they said like 5% maybe. That is a disruption.
Right. Yeah. It's like you're doing it in real time with a ton of money and like a system that's like complicated. So you know, like this. But that being said, like the base case is definitely that things like go on the back half of that smooth. So. And I think that it's good, right? Like it's like in general, I think it's going to be super important for the industry to like ship something like this and like get it on the other side. Like, I think it's pretty important, even just like outside of like ETH.
Yeah.
Do you think it could create some momentum around big to
I think so. Yeah.
Markets?
Yeah. I think there's like a real reality that like puts a lot of, I think specifically for, here's the thing, like if you're like a traditional manager in any capacity and like there's a thing coming up called Emerge. You probably have zero technical understanding of it, which is fine. Like that's like a lot of cause for concern for you not to do anything, even if you think the probability is low, just from like a career risk, right? Like you don't want to be the guy who like on the back half of that like torched a bunch of money because you like had your timing wrong about an event you knew. So I don't know. I think there's some reality of like flows like mattering according to that. And like there is like a real shift of like supply, right? Like that matters. Like that imbalance is not going to just like stick in the market and do nothing over like a sustained period of time. Like, is it going to be like oh my God, it happened. And then like 40 minutes later, like the market rifles, like no, but like there's like a material shift in like sort of how the like flows of capital are on the back of that matters.
So,
Yeah, it seems,
funds try to stay out of these situations whenever taking a position, whenever there is some like big thing happening like this, they try to stay out.
Well, I think most people that are active in the market are doing the opposite. I think like most of them are putting positions on according to it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see you really see it on even you see the very classic Bitcoin fans like retail or like kind of OGs. Some of them run business or funds now. You can see there's a very like strong ether narrative going on even for those guys. People have traditionally been pretty negative about Ethereum, but I guess it's just because like they're actually shipping something that is not Taproot.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, right? Like I think like it's hard being an asset manager and like pitching. Like look, Bitcoin's like basically flat over 5 years, right? So like there's just like not going to be like a lot of vocal people out there who have like or raising money like I mean there were, but I don't think it really worked out well for any of them. So like I think like Ether is separated from the pack in a bit that it's like it's a lot more investable. There's like a lot more things like that can be like you get the ecosystem with it, you get like pieces that are on top of it. Like I don't know, like it's definitely dominating the fund structure. That's probably going to continue and accelerate if I had to guess. Like I think Bitcoin on the back of this is going to have like a hard narrative.
You've also got the JPEGs, you know?
You got the JPEGs, yeah.
Is CMS into JPEGs?
No. So we really haven't been. There's a couple guys here that are just like massively into it though. We got one guy who I believe like owns more like near NFTs than like anybody on the planet. Like I'm almost like positive. Like he's like really into the JPEGs. So, and I think he's done well from it. I haven't like asked him what he's like made, like basically trading JPEGs, but I think it's material.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I wanted to ask this. So the CMS intern account, that's like a legit person that works for you, right? That's running.
Yeah, and he was like our intern. We hired him full time. So like, yeah, no, but that's true. Like, and so he just created it and like started posting and like didn't tell me about it, and then he like DM'd me and he's like, "Hey, is it okay if I do this?" And I was like, "Well, who are you? Do you even work here?" And he's like, "Yeah, like it's so and so." And I'm like, I'm not gonna like blow up his like name or spot or anything, but yeah, no, that's real. Like he still works here. Now he's a full-time employee, but he still obviously like runs the intern account.
Nice.
He's got to pass the torch when we get another one.
You need a CMS intern, right?
So there was an intern that worked for him who I think he referenced him a couple times as his like intern. Yeah, so like that's already borne out.
Levels of interns. Wow.
Interns all the way down.
So I guess as well, we have to talk about it. Do you think that the Vitalik dick pic actually had a fundamental impact on the market?
No,
because it's
I don't think that.
It did seem to spike a little bit. It went up in like a,
Yeah. I just think it just happened to play out at a time where there was like a movement. Yeah. I mean, they would have just been making different memes if it had gone down.
True.
There was no way they weren't gonna say something, right? Like it was just too good not to, and it just happened to go up, so they like ran with it that way.
That's us. You gotta get the professionals' opinion.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It was a pump and dump.
Yeah. I think we're basically back to the pre-pig level. No, at least he played along with it. He was funny.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
I'm trying to think. We also had this Michael Saylor stuff which came out. Do you see that? Michael Saylor,
the tax thing in DC.
Yeah. So Bitcoin is coming under attack. He's getting. He's been told that he lives in Washington in DC, right? But he supposedly doesn't, and there's a whole backlash with that. They're coming after MicroStrategy.
So there's a whistleblower. So there's definitely like more to it. I mean, right now it's just like DC claims that he spent the bulk of his time in Washington, D.C., therefore he like owes taxes. He claims that he was in Florida, which has no state income tax. So I don't know, like in today's day and age, it's kind of like hard to like not say you are somewhere, right? Like there's going to be like electronic records of wherever you are. So I don't know what the AG has. I would guess though that they probably already like know the answer. And then there's like a whistleblower inside. I mean, like I don't think. Look, at the end of the day, if it's like, all right, you were actually here for this amount of time, like I think he's just gonna have to like pay the back taxes and interest, and then like life moves on. I think like everybody's making a bigger deal out of this than it like really sort of is. I think there'll be more of this though, kind of stuff in the future. Like, I mean, the IRS got beefed up, right? Like they got a really hefty like increase in the infrastructure bill. So like I think one of the things that's easy to prove is like that you lived somewhere than you didn't, and I think like states in particular are going to use that. Obviously, like the federal level is different than like the state level, but like they work together and like there's like a lot of information sharing that goes on. So, I don't know. I think that will probably also it's become like in the pandemic, like a lot of people moved, and a lot of people specifically moved from high tax areas to like low tax areas. So I'm sure like the state revenue offices are like looking at this and like, hey, like when were people really where they say they were and like whatnot. I don't know. I am doing a piss poor job trying to like move out of high tax areas. So like, I don't think anybody's on my case. Like, I think I'm probably like non-optimizing for this. So I'm not, but like, I think it's like a general sort of trend of like, people are going to be looking into this stuff. This one's just high profile because of who he is. And like, he said some stuff and like, it's a big number and like, he's on like a public company. I don't know if MicroStrategy has any involvement in it. I wasn't entirely sure.
I saw it said that they are involved. That they're going to be. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't got it to hand right now, but I definitely saw them mentioned like in relation to the company was going to have to answer for some stuff as well. But I don't know.
Yeah, they'll probably like. I mean, like, look, they know where he was at times, right? So they're definitely going to like be involved and like what are the pieces of it. I think it gets like into weird situations where like, let's say you like claim you live in Texas or like Texas or Florida or something like that, but like you spend time in DC. But then you spend a month in Europe doing work, like bouncing around during conferences. It's like, well, where does that time count? And like, I don't like the rules get like weird when you start thinking about like the edge cases. of like when you pick up, like if you're not in either area, or like what constitutes like time. I think like that's like where a lot. I think MicroStrategy, if I remember correctly, is in Virginia. Like I think their headquarters is over there. So like that would make some sense. Like because I was actually wondering why he was in DC, and then I was like, oh, I think he's like actually because he's trying to get over to. Like they've been in the Virginia area for a while.
They supposedly do like analytics or something, right? MicroStrategy.
It is
There is a business, yeah.
It is supposedly a real business somewhere, but
Not just a Bitcoin holding company.
but it is highly leveraged, highly leveraged business.
What do you do like if you work there and you're like a random like software engineer on like their like other app? Like, I mean, you probably loved it because the stock ran up, but like at the other time you could be like, does anybody even care if I do my job here? Like, does it like matter in any capacity?
I think it's a bit like if you work at Yahoo.
Oh,
well,
with the
they still
Baba
had
thing?
this share. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like it feels like my job at the news desk in the sports section on Yahoo News is not that important.
Yeah, it's very much the same situation. But I think there's like people keep saying that like, oh, he's gonna have to sell. Like, first of all, like the amount that's being claimed, I think is like $25 million, which is like not nothing, but it's like not in comparison to how much like is on that balance sheet. Like I don't think it's like super. And he may like have other assets, and he also like this will go out in court for a while. So I think this idea that like we're gonna lift down $20,000 because of this is like ridiculous.
Oh, that's what people. I didn't even read this because I'm. I'm so tired of Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy because I'd seen him on stage in Miami Bitcoin. It's I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna pump Bitcoin. So then I guess whenever something happens to him, they're like, oh, something happened to him. That's now Bitcoin is gonna crash.
Yeah,
So,
I think like
it.
the Twitter craziness of it was like, oh, he's gonna have to sell his Bitcoin to like cover this tax thing or something. It was just like, no, that's like not. Even if like he loses, like that's just like not how it's gonna play out.
But would even like that amount wouldn't
No, it wouldn't do
possibly
anything.
substantially move the market, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's like that was like the back of it was like even the worst case scenario isn't like that bad a scenario. Yeah, I don't know.
It's
People
the
were
same-
like,
It's the same with the MT Gox stuff as well, right? That's a similar situation. Like, I don't know how much is being. Do you know how much?
a lot is being released, yeah, but not anytime soon is the catch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. Like, the problem is like you're dealing with like Japanese bankruptcy laws, and like let's be honest, like your random person you're talking to on Twitter doesn't know what's going on. Like obviously those funds will eventually get back to people, but like people keep acting like it's. I think people were like saying this weekend it was going to be like tomorrow or something. Like it's just like it's going to be heavily broadcast and it's going to be months in advance, and it's like not tomorrow. So yeah, but yes, it will eventually happen, and it is a lot. Like it's not nothing. Like it is a material amount of like Bitcoin.
Some number in my head
140,000
says-
coin.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's real. Like a lot of it's been sold already, right? Like Fortress in particular owns a ton of it. But like Fortress may sell it, right? Like it's a trade to them.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could sell your claims to people for like a while now. Which a lot of people took like let's say like you had 100 Bitcoin on there and you're like owed, I don't know what the haircut came out to, like 30 Bitcoin at the end of the day. You could then like sell that Bitcoin to Fortress for a discount, and like they would give you cash today. So they were like buying claims for a really long time. There's a couple groups doing it, but Fortress was the big one. And a lot of people took them up on that like over the years.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Was that smart?
Yeah, because when were they? Do you know how long ago that was? Like, were they?
They've been doing it for years. I think they started doing it in like 2018 or 2019. So
Okay. So
well, it's like Fortress is taking a good haircut on it too. So like they're not just like giving you like close to spot. So like they've got a lot of like P&L baked into it. I don't know how much of that's hedged. Like I don't know how much they sold Bitcoin against it in current terms to like. So I have no idea what like the man. I would bet good money they're making money on it though. Like I think it's going to work out for them. And then people got cash today, which like I don't know if you did it in 2019, like I don't know what's the present value of that money over. Yeah, it depends when you did it, but it's not like necessarily a terrible decision.
So speaking of like I guess good financial decisions, how do you think people in this market currently can actually like get through it? Is it a case of like better to step away, or is it better to be in right now? Like, what would your take on that be?
I think it's just better to step away from most participants and just like wait. Like, you don't have to do anything.
If you're assuming you're already holding and you're just not going to do anything.
Yeah, right. You're just gonna like chill. Or I mean, like, look, if you like have to do something, find some like small corner of the universe that's like not heavily trafficked and like figure out an edge there. Because like the major stuff is like not a game you should be playing right now.
It's Doge Chain, obviously. You know, here we go.
Doge Chain was popular.
Doge Chain. Blake is really into
Maxi.
Doge Chain.
No.
I've been trying to sell my W Doge and trying to sell my Doge Chain DC tokens, but it's so shit that like I can't get my orders through, so I will accidentally be poor or rich.
That's a feature, not a bug, though.
Yeah, that is. Nobody else can sell either.
Yeah.
No, they can't. I tried everything. I tried like Doge swap.dog. Quick, and Blake was like, no, go to Quick Swap.
No Kibble Swap.
Go to Quick Swap. Go to Quick Swap, and I go there, and it's like I tried to put in an order for like $1,000, and it's like, no, that's way too big. He's back out of there. It's like there's no liquidity for that. So then he said Kibble Swap, which was even worse. It's 500K liquidity.
Yeah, but you know, you can just move the market. It's good. It's action. You know, stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's like $1,000 have a price impact of like 14%. It's pretty.
Make your presence known.
And the other, I mean, you're pretty much big on the L1s and the L2s and all of this. What do you make of all the? We're seeing a lot of L1s and L2s happening at the same time. It's like you tell somebody Aptos and they tell you Sui, and then somebody tells you it's actually the same guy. He's running both at the same time, but then he's also working on Solana. But then there's a rumor that like his buddy is working on a new one called Linera. Yeah, came out like 3 days ago. And then what is it with I know that Solana publishes this metric all the time where they call like how decentralized it is. It's like how many validators you got to take down, all of this. I'm sure that's all great. Personally, I have a feeling that Solana is in reality extremely centralized. People just run whatever they tell you to run, and they can just pause the network, stuff like that. But even assuming that Solana has gotten decentralized, what do we need these other like 25 L1s for that seem to have the same people making them and investing in them? Why is this happening right now? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of people that like looked at the L1 trade from like 2021 and they're just like trying to like rerun the playbook. Yeah, because like look, like you had like Luna, AVAX, Solana, like probably the big three winners like out of that. Like Luna's obviously toast, but like AVAX and Sol like still like materially higher than like from where they like launched them and like did like sales and whatnot. So like those were like pretty big successes that I think are trying to be like mirrored in the market. The problem, so here, I guess like there's 2 points. Like if your core thesis is that like on-chain demand for like block space and like compute is like going to go up, which I think like people kind of are like, yes, like that's like the long-term trajectory of all this stuff. Then like there's 2 ways that this goes. It either like sticks around on ETH and it just like moves to L2s and like that's how like the whole thing scales, or you really just end up in a world where like there's a lot of like different L1s that will support different things and like there's abilities to bridge or like and/or you know like move between them, right? And there'll be like pieces of plumbing that's like created to like facilitate that multi-chain sort of like architecture. So I think most of the people that are investing in this stuff like believe that multi-chain architecture version of it. And I think the idea is that like there'll be continued pushing of like transaction compute capacity out into like other like blockchains, which is like why they're like, all right, like any of these other L1s that have a chance, there's high upside if there's like a future that they end up like putting a lot of like pieces of transactions that are like going on there or like things that need to be like done on a blockchain like over in that like corner of the universe. It's the counter to the whole thing right now though is like ETH is at like 2 like gas, right? And like nobody's even using like the main core Ethernet chain in like full capacity. So like demand for like compute is so low that like all these things look like a little silly. But if you're in a world where you're like, you've got $100 gas fees and you got like more transactions than you know what to deal with, and like the world is mania and everything's moving on chain and it's 2021 again, those like other L1s make a lot of sense. And like that's like where like everything will slowly spill over to. So I think like that's the thesis, is that is the world that will happen, is like all this stuff will move on to like different components of it to like scale, like other L1s, and like that will be how like the world looks. But it's not sure, right? Nobody knows which path like all this stuff's going to take, but like that's like a very investable like thesis that I think people like. So I don't know. I think that's like why a lot of it's been happening.
Do you think so? Do you think Sam hates Solana and his new girlfriend is actually Aptos?
I don't. They like FTX, and like they keep a lot of Solana engineers still on staff, and like they do like a lot of work for it. So like they're very much still involved in it. I think it's a little overblown. The like everybody's moving everything to Aptos. Like same with Multicoin. Like we like talk to them a lot. Like they're still very involved in like the Solana stuff. But I don't know. I mean, like there's like you buy low, sell high kind of thing, right? Like if you've got a new cheap L1 with like a high upside, like I don't know, it's worth the flyer to like put some money onto that, and then like in the event it like catches and goes, like I don't know. I get the investing thesis of it, but I don't think people are like suddenly moving everything over either.
Right. And I mean, I guess you can't see what you guys put the money in, but are you still looking at all these L1s like CMS? Would you like, are you still walking around this like the next what is it, Linera?
So we
like, it's a 10% faster than Linera, but it's also written in Move.
Move, yeah, that's the big thing. No, we haven't done anything with any of the new L1s. I mean, mostly just because we think the valuations are just too rich. Like they're trading as if they've already been successful. So like, like we don't have some like thesis where we like, I don't know. It's not some like purity thing where we're like, no, like it's going to be like ETH and Sol and AVAX. It's just like we don't think like they're priced too high. Like they're priced as if they're already like working ecosystems. We'd rather own baskets of like the existing stuff than those at the current juncture. So
that's that was sort of my question, because I was looking at these and it's like kind of interesting. I was wondering like, should I just ape into it because it worked, like repeat the playbook? But then I saw the valuations. I'm like, oh my god,
they're high.
What is this?
It's hard. Like it's hard to be like, oh, like this. Like it's not like, oh, like maybe this works out, and like if it like maybe works out, you probably lose money. Like you need it to like really work out currently. They need to make it and ship it and get mass adoption, and then you're even. Right. Exactly. That's like sort of the problem with it. As like you might like realistically just be better off like waiting until like it all goes loose, and like you might get a shot at it cheaper than like whatever it's getting sold now.
Right.
Yeah. Which was true. Like that was almost true even for Ether at the time, in the early days. Like it got very close back to like on a Bitcoin adjusted level to like where the ICO was at one point.
You did the ICO, right?
I did the ICO, and I proudly sold it $4 because it was so shit.
It was.
It was so shit. The development process was shit. The launch was shit. It was all terrible. It was very unimpressive. So I'm like, I never thought it would launch, and when it did, I mean, this is garbage.
I know.
I had to make a browser wallet because I was working at Kraken, so I had to make it so you could send your ICO money from the browser to the Kraken exchange, and it was unworkable. Just like the Web3 stuff they had, this is like not functioning. So
I know. I torched a bunch of money fucking around with it in the beginning by accident. Yeah.
No, so no, totally. It would. I think it made sense to sell it at the after the ICO, after it was released, and then buy back in. It took ages. I mean, it was the first project that was like Gnosis and the other one that didn't work out.
None of that stuff. I did the Gnosis ICO through Kraken.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't do that one.
Yeah,
I didn't do Augury either.
We got heavy into that back in. Well, that was like when ETH first had people cared about it. It was when those things like started getting hot.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. But yeah, so it would have made sense to buy back at basically the start of DeFi summer.
Yeah,
That was the first
basically
time we were
right.
like, wow, this is great.
People love this shit.
I did not do that.
Guys, I got a jet, unfortunately.
No worries. Yeah, I was just about to
worries.
wrap this up as well. But Dan, really appreciate your time. Everyone, be sure to follow at CMS Holdings on Twitter. And yeah, check out what Dan and it's just you running that account, right?
No, I mean, we got the other guys here. I kind of just like farm everyone's content.
All right. So check out what CMS Holdings are putting out. But
Thank you,
cheers,
Dan.
Dan.
All right,
Really appreciate it.
cheers.